This week has seen Malawians go to the polls to elect their political representatives for the next 5 years. And in Ghana, President Nana Akufo-Addo assents to the Right to Information Bill. This is Africa Focus. Here's a peek of the stories set in store today.
South African pupils open up to the wounds of apartheid past. Sudanese protesters vow to remain steadfast in their sit-in during the holy month of Ramadan. Ghana eyes world record in medical drone service.
I'm Lenny Rashid, and our sign language interpreter is Tracy Dorcas. Before we get into the main stories, let's take a look at the news that made the headlines around the continent.
Drought has left nearly 2 million Somalis in desperate need of food, a humanitarian agency warned on Monday, as poor rainfall pushes communities to the brink across East Africa. The Norwegian Refugee Council said hundreds of thousands of children were already suffering malnutrition in Somalia, and millions had already abandoned their homes in search of food in the arid, conflict-torn nation. Somalia is enduring its third driest long-rain season since 1981. The United Nations estimate that 1.7 million people are going hungry, with that figure expected to grow by another 500,000 come July. Last week, the UN said 44,000 Somalis had left their homes in rural areas for urban centers just this year, joining the estimated 2.6 million internally displaced people across the country. The US-funded network warned more than 42 million people in Ethiopia, South Sudan, Somalia, Sudan, Kenya, Uganda, and nearby Yemen who are currently facing crisis levels of food insecurity.
Zambia's President Edgar Lungu on Friday told international mining companies to leave the copper-rich country if they oppose a new tax regime, as he ratcheted up a dispute over possible job losses. Lungu has targeted the mining sector to generate revenue as the country struggles under growing debt, but businesses have warned that the tax proposals could trigger a mass withdrawal of investment and thousands of redundancies. Zambian public debt is officially around $15 billion, 70% of GDP, but some analysts have alleged that the government could be hiding some loans, as happened in the neighboring Mozambique.
Protesters at the Sudanese capital sit-in denounced a declaration by the Transitional Military Council to halt ongoing negotiations after violence erupted on Wednesday. At least 9 people were wounded on Wednesday when Sudanese forces used live ammunition to clear demonstrators from central Khartoum, a protest group said. Talks on forming a body to lead Sudan to democracy have been suspended for 72 hours. The violence has cast a shadow on talks that had appeared on course to reach a deal on forming a joint military-civilian body to run the country for a 3-year transition period until presidential elections. Both sides traded accusations on who was responsible for the violence. Some demonstrators expressed caution over the prospects of an agreement that would satisfy their demands for a handover of power to civilians and for security forces to be held to account for the deaths of demonstrators.
A grieving France paid its respect Tuesday to 2 commandos killed during a raid to rescue 4 hostages in the Sahel region of Africa last week, under the shadow of a row of risks taken 2 of those freed. French Special Forces Cédric Pierrepont, 33, and Alain Bertoncello, 28, who died in the operation in Burkina Faso, were honored with a ceremony at the Invalides military complex in Paris, led by President Emmanuel Macron. Crowds joined soldiers, firefighters, and veterans in lining the bridge leading up to the imposing 17th century landmark, as the motorcade carrying their coffins made its solemn procession through a sunlit Paris. The deaths were a reminder of the risks encountered in the region by French forces, who have been deployed in the Sahel since 2013, when France intervened to drive back terrorist groups who had taken control of northern Mali. A total of 26 French soldiers have died in the deployment, including Pierrepont and Bertoncello.
A police officer who sprayed tear gas at protesters was pushed off a van as tens of thousands of Algerians returned to the streets of the capital Algiers for the 13th successive Friday to demand the removal of the nation's ruling elite. After 2 decades in power, President Abdelaziz Bouteflika quit last month under pressure from protesters and the army, but demonstrations have continued seeking political reforms and the removal of all officials belonging to the old guard. Clashes between police and protesters broke out in Algiers on the esplanade of La Grande Poste, the central post office, as authorities attempted to block the area to demonstrators. The protesters were calling for the resignations of the interim president, Abdelkader Ben Salah, and Prime Minister Nourdine Bedoui, appointed by Bouteflika days before he stepped down. A presidential election is scheduled for 4th of July, but a source familiar with the matter has told the media that the vote was to be delayed due to difficulties of organizing the logistics in time and opposition on the street.
A quarter of a century after the advent of democracy in South Africa, teaching apartheid remains a difficult ride. For educators, there is the challenge of finding a balance and emotion to convey this terrible chapter of the country's history. For students, the story of apartheid touches on collective memories of suffering, fear, and identity that so easily flare into pain, guilt, or anger.
These South African students are in history class, but it's not just any history class. Today, the students at this sought-after girls' school in Cape Town are learning about the apartheid. They may be too young to have lived through the 46-year period of racial divide, but it still casts a shadow over their lives.
I still feel kind of guilty sometimes that this happened. Like, I don't have any I didn't do anything directly, but it's just, I mean, like, as a country.
There's a lot of stuff that we don't talk about because we think it's too heavy of a topic, but really it is a discussion that needs to happen.
Teaching history is not mandatory at all ages in South African schools. For the final 3 high school grades, the choice of whether to teach it and how to teach it is left to the discretion of individual establishments. 100 kilometres to the east in the village of Worcester, another apartheid history class is underway. But here, the focus is also on the modern day and lingering signs of division.
If you go, it's about 500 meters from here. You say a shanty town, but when you go to white areas, you don't see them. So that's part of the question they will be asking you. Why are we like living like this and them like this? So it's still the Likas.
During his class, Milton Changwa recounts tales of his day-to-day life under the apartheid. Certain stories resonate with his pupils today.
It's just smooth right now because nobody is like standing against it so that like it doesn't get exposed, if you know what I'm trying to say. But facing the fact that whites are still superior than blacks. Looking like blacks own businesses. How many black-owned businesses do you know, man? If you know what I'm trying to say.
The ruling party in South Africa wants to make history lessons compulsory across all ages. It's hoped that a greater understanding of past injustices will help the country get closer to Nelson Mandela's dream of a united rainbow nation.
Sierra Leone has one of the highest rates globally for neonatal and maternal mortality. Maternal deaths alone are as many as the deaths caused by the Ebola outbreak in 2014-2015. One of the key solutions for saving women's lives is ensuring that every woman has access to a well-trained midwife working in an enabling environment. The Masuba Midwifery School is hoping to change this narrative one midwife at a time.
As part of the midwife training course, every pupil spends time in a remote village where one of the toughest challenges is overcoming people's resistance to modern medicine.
People they don't believe in the hospital facility. They believe in the native medication thing. They counsel them, the nurses, they talk to them, tell them the importance of being in the hospital. Even though some, if they tell them, they'll still refuse. And they'll go home. I don't want to be in a hospital, I don't want to be in a hospital.
Sierra Leone has the highest maternal mortality rate in the world, mostly due to early and frequent pregnancies. Yet still, the country has only 2 midwife training schools. They teach students how to raise awareness about modern forms of birth control whilst respecting popular traditional contraceptive methods, such as feathers worn in the hair and plaited cotton bracelets.
Culturally sensitive care. Because of the continent we find ourselves, we also want to respect culture. Because if you dispute this one, then you will not get them to use the modern type. So we encourage them that this one is good, but you back it up with the modern method of family planning.
And with widespread female genital mutilation, which increases the risk of complications during childbirth, and the effects of the Ebola outbreak, which strained already limited resources, the midwives have their work cut out. Supported by the UN Population Fund, the Masuba Midwifery School receives hundreds of applications each year. But a lack of space means there's a limit to how many midwives they can train.
I believe if they train more midwives, and midwives are in every birth, attending to every birth in this country, it will help greatly to reduce maternal mortality. Because with the training, me so far knowing the curriculum that we covers, teaching them the right attitude, telling them the importance of outreach and tracing defaulters in community, and involving the community in giving care to our women and children.
In a few weeks, 70 new midwives will graduate to be deployed straight to the front line in Sierra Leone's fight against a maternal health crisis.
Coming up after the break.
By Matatu, we take a ride in some of Kenya's hottest mats.
We'll be right back. Keep it switched. Don't touch that dial. Welcome back to Africa Focus. ZIPLINE International, a health tech drone delivery company, recently announced that it has officially expanded its operations to Ghana, making it the world's largest autonomous medical drone delivery service. Over the last 6 months, the company has expanded from one distribution company in Rwanda to delivering blood to 21 hospitals to operating 6 distribution centers in 2 countries. Its reach now serves nearly 22 million people.
Ghana recently launched a fleet of airborne drones carrying medical supplies to remote areas, with President Nana Akufo-Addo declaring it will become the world's largest drone delivery service. The drones are part of an ambitious plan to leapfrog problems of medical access in a country with poor roads.
So with the ZIPLINE and its provision of the drone technology, we believe very much that if it happens that we have to bring things on an emergency basis, it's going to be much easier for us. Within a very short time, like where we find ourselves in a new Tafu government hospital, within 30 minutes you have these products delivered to you.
The drones have been flying test runs with blood and vaccines, but the project was officially inaugurated in late April at the main drones base in Omenako, 70 kilometers north of Accra. Omenako is the first of 4 distributional centers, which when fully operational will each have 30 drones serving 500 clinics with an 80-kilometer radius. The company says the 3 other sites should be up and running by the end of 2019. If the proposal goes to plan, the delivery system will ferry 150 different medicines, blood and vaccines to more than 2,000 clinics and serve more than 12 million people, roughly 40% of the population.
When people are in urgent need, when their life is on the line, and the hospital might not have the blood or medicine they need to stay alive, we're able to get that medicine to them in 15 to 20 minutes by sending a drone and airdropping a package of medicine to the hospital.
ZIPLINE, a US-based company, first began delivering blood and medicine in East Africa in 2016, deploying drones in Rwanda, a country dubbed the land of 1,000 hills, where access to many villages by road is a problem. ZIPLINE is now expanding to other sides of the continent. For Ghana, a country of nearly 30 million people scattered across a land area about the size of Britain, the former colonial ruler, poor roads and lack of ambulances are major challenges to healthcare access.
Sudan's main protest group has called on a general strike after talks with the country's military rulers stalled on who will lead an agreed 3-year transition. The protesters have also vowed to remain steadfast in their sit-in throughout the holy fasting month of Ramadan, with the help of volunteers who have been preparing the iftar meal for the demonstrators.
For Kwanja Edward, stirring a massive pot of porridge on a roadside in central Khartoum to feed protesters camping outside Sudan's defense ministry is the best place to be during this Ramadan.
We do not receive wages. We are here as volunteers. I am personally Southern. I am here from the state of South Sudan. But in the end, we want freedom and justice for Sudan.
Originally from South Sudan, the middle-aged nurse who now lives in Khartoum's twin city of Omdurman on the opposite side of Nile River, she had made her way to the capital because she wanted to do what is best for Sudan.
There is great cooperation between the protesters at the sit-in and those who arrive with food supplies such as bread, dates, sugar and things like that. So we do not need aid from foreign countries or for foreign countries to come here and help us, or for a specific party to come and help us. We are citizens without labels, Sudanese citizens, free protesters.
Like the many thousands who converged on the ministry on April 6th, eventually forcing veteran autocrat Omar el-Bashir to resign, Edward has defied searing heat of up to 47 degrees as she and other protesters push the Transitional Military Council to hand power to civilians. 5 days into Ramadan, most of the protesters are staying put.
We are standing with our children, the protesters, demonstrators and fighters. We want the revolution and a new Sudan. We are standing with them, standing to feed them and quench their thirst so that they can find the strength to chant, to sleep, to have strong hearts. Crowds always come here, and we are always here for them.
They come together at sunset to break their dawn to dust fast, tucking into meals cooked by volunteers like Edward, made from vegetables, grains and various groceries donated by wealthy Sudanese. The sit-in occupies the main avenue outside the defense ministry, but also spills into neighboring side streets and roads where organizers have set up kitchens and storage areas to prepare food for the angry crowd. Demonstrators say the food is largely acquired through donations and people bringing whatever they can afford when they come to the sit-in. Organizers said the several companies also provide bread, water and other basic items.
We are happy with all our youth. These young men came from all over Sudan, from all provinces and all areas. They are here and they are suffering. All day they are here directly under the sun. There are no funds or shelters. No one comes to a place like this unless they have a case to defend, unless they have something to fight for and take back.
Before the evening prayer call, dozens of young volunteers lay out green mats and plates of fruits, dates and various stews, as well as cups of juice and water. Afterwards, the mats are being rolled away. People gather and demonstrations take shape down the avenue with slogans such as freedom, peace and justice, and revolution is the people's choice ringing out.
Throughout history, attitudes towards beards have varied wildly. In ancient Egypt, the rich and powerful grew beards which were often dyed and sometimes plaited with interwoven gold thread. The world over, millions continue to embrace the beard. One such person is Jeffrey OKPALAEKE, who is cashing in on this fad.
The air is rich with scents of agan, tea tree, almond and eucalyptus oils in Jeffrey OKPALAEKE's Lagos workshop. The 30-year-old Nigerian is mixing up a fresh batch of the secret blend of essential oils that make up the bestseller in his cosmetics line, Beard and Butter.
In Nigeria, what I know is that so many people need beard grooming products, especially oils or balms. A lot of Nigerian guys have beards that are quite like, they call it rice and beans. It has patches on the side, and then, you try to comb it and you're crying, it's hard to comb. So they don't really know that there are products out there within Nigeria that they can use to solve their, male hair conundrums.
OKPALAEKE started growing beard in 2012, in keeping with the global trend that saw bearded men grouping themselves on social media as the beer gang. He was in the UK at the time and spoiled for choice with grooming products for men sporting facial hair. When he returned to Nigeria, he found that hair products were almost exclusively targeted at women.
We are quite open and ready for this market. It's a market that's emerged out of nowhere. Within the past 4 or 5 years, it's blown.
OKPALAEKE started beer and butter in 2017. He and other players in the male grooming space are onto something. It's not just beards. Manicures, pedicures, haircuts, skin lotions, colognes, and men's fashions are all experiencing a boom.
Actually, yeah, it's just like fashion also. Just like fashion, because sometimes people can use it to describe you that, do you know that guy has beard? And some ladies like it a lot, you know. Whenever they're around you, they'll be like playing with it, touching it. So I really like it.
Global male grooming product market is expected to reach $76 billion by 2023 from $58 billion in 2017. Africa's youthful population offers companies the chance to targeting millions of new customers, with Unilever, Procter & Gamble and L'Oreal combing through the space. OKPALAEKE says beard and butter sales have been on a constant increase. His products sell for between $15 to $27.
Nairobi has a population of about 3 million residents. More than half of them use matatus to and from work for transport. Matatus are iconic on the busy streets of Nairobi. However, they are more popular for one thing: their graffiti. The more glitzy and effervescent the matatu, the more prominent it becomes to attract passengers.
In Nairobi traffic, these buses are king. Matatus weave through jams with style. Some 18,000 of these vehicles crisscross the road, trying to outdo each other in a bid to attract young passengers. Pimped up bodywork covered in graffiti and roaring engines. The more eye-catching and noisy, the better.
Graffiti is more appealing to the eyes, and beauty is what attracts someone, yeah? So with a matatu like this, you expect something like free Wi-Fi, music.
Like a cloth, you like the better cloth, so you have to make it better so that you attract the customers.
Wi-Fi, plasma screens and deafening music. Matatus are clubs on wheels. For 150 shillings or $1.50, Nairobi residents can get the ride of their lives in the Kenyan capital. At the wheel, matatu drivers zigzag through chaotic traffic. Part rockster, part bad boy. They're often a hit with the prettiest girls in town.
I'm not the one who always tell them sit here. They like us. Their choice. Their choice. They like us.
Before hitting the roads, matatus need several weeks of work. The best graffiti artists in Nairobi get involved, and a good design means a spot in the prestigious weekly ranking of the city's coolest matatus. It's a sizable investment. All in all, a matatu owner needs to invest almost $70,000, and it takes about 2 years to cover the cost. Then again, some travelers choose classic matatus over their pimped-up counterparts, a calmer ride that sets you back just a fraction of the price.
On Africa Focus, we love hearing from you, so make sure you get interactive with us on our various social media pages. Remember, you can view this program along with our wide array of other programs on DSTV channel 268 and on Azan TV channel 138. On behalf of the entire team here on Africa Focus, thank you for keeping us company on this exciting journey. Do enjoy the rest of your viewing.